What does sexual health mean to me? It's developed over time. Sexual health was different when I was coming up because it was just a means to have a baby, to have a child.
Is about pleasure.
Sexuality or sexual expression that is also healing and nurturing.
Having a healthy relationship with my body.
It's a physical, mental, emotional, spiritual experience.
Taking care of the bodies that I'm connecting with, that I'm being sexual with.
Having the knowledge to make choices that support you in being healthy. And if not, at least know what your risks are so that you can practice like maybe a harm reduction model.
As I've gotten older and come to understand my body and come to appreciate my body and all my flaws, set my body and all my flaws at any weight that it is. It allows me to have a healthy relationship with my partner.
But also holistically, that it is sexuality or sexual expression that is also healing and nurturing for me emotionally and spiritually, that it be this holistic expression. That for me is sexual health. I love this question. Why is it important for a healthcare provider to also be able to talk comfortably about sex, sexuality, sexual health, and pleasure? I love this question because I have the perfect example. I am I'm someone, so I don't have a tremendous amount of sex. I'm kind of old school. I have crushes on people, and that's who I tend to have sex with. So it had been a few years since I had had sex at this one point, and I wound up having this UTI that was I was really like having a problem, and I needed to go into the ER. So I went into Davies Hospital and into the emergency room because on the weekend, and I couldn't pee. So I tell the nurses, because there's all these gay guys in there that are standing around me as I'm getting tested, and then this. I wound up telling them the whole story, and I'm like, "This is how many years it's been since I've had sex, and I had sex, and here I am in the ER." And they're like, "It's been that long?" They're like, "Girl, you're back in the saddle." And everybody was giving me a high five. And I was like, oh my God, this is the culmination of my life in San Francisco, that I am getting a standing ovation from this group of people that are affirming me, affirming my sexuality, affirming my sexual orientation. And like, I wasn't feeling like gun shy or shamed or anything like that, but they wanted to make sure I wasn't. And they were just like so joyful about me having had sex. And I just thought it was like this perfect example of when we have things in this proper perspective of loving our whole selves and accepting our whole selves and making sure that we affirm even the places and the experiences in our lives that sometimes we may be carrying shame around. So I feel like it's so important for providers to be able to completely freely talk about someone's sexuality, their sexual expression, what their sexual practices are, and to have people just feel like there's nothing to be ashamed of, and it's nothing to be ashamed of, and anything that they need to express or they need to ask questions about. That was one of my favorite moments, one of my favorite memories. To share any positive and negative experiences you've had with healthcare providers related to this topic of sexual health.
So I remember, it was May of 1989 when I went to test for HIV, and the provider was a doctor who looked like my mom. She talked like my mom. And during the intake, she started asking questions like my mom, like, are you gay? Do you do drugs? Just a bunch of stuff that I didn't really need to hear. So after that, I almost didn't come back for my test results. But about 4 or 5 weeks later, I got a card in the mail and said, please come back to the clinic. We need to talk to you about your tests. So, we went in, same lady. And this time, when she was done, she said, you only get this from having sex with hundreds and hundreds of people. What do you have to say for yourself? And I was like, I've had sex with 3 people in 3 years leading up to this. So I think I told her something like, I need to make up for lost time.
And I think that's something that providers need to be aware of, that you have somebody coming in and them is more than just what you see on the paper, what their labs say. It's more than what their numbers say, what their blood pressure, what their heart rate is. we're people, and it's okay to have a conversation and to ask me about my sexual life, my sex life, my life with my husband, whether we practice safe sex or not. Don't just ask me if I've had multiple partners and if I've used protection. It's about having, first of all, if you have a rapport with your clients that you're working with, then you guys can have that conversation. It won't be a problem.
When I was being tested, and I was at a very fragile state. I was truly at a headspace where, I just wanted to make sure that I was sexually, safe, and, this was my first time. It was really all new to me. And I recall the person being in charge of giving me my test so focused and infatuated in my sexual life. And we've already gotten the test results. I'm sitting here waiting for him to give me my results, but he's so focused on everything else that has nothing to do with that, with the results, and making sure the productivity of my sexual health life is really focused on. And above all, I was negative, and he gave me my test results, and I had to purge that essentially out of him. And I felt like that was a very discouraging experience. And I felt like for him being a medical leader, he should have been more appropriate. And I think of so many other young adults who have similar, essentially maybe worse, experiences. And so in this new movement, it's extremely important for us to make sure that we are appointing the appropriate leaders who are going to approach sexual health not only in the best medical way, but in the most human, in the most loving, in the most caring, in the most community-based and thoughtful way possible.
When I went into my doctor's office, and I was seeing this nurse practitioner, this new nurse practitioner, and he went through this entire list of things as like a health check, a check-in with me and my body. And he was like, so are you feeling at all sexual? Are you able to have erections? Are you masturbating on a regular basis? Are you feeling too tired or too depressed to masturbate? And just asking me all these questions that were really, really thoughtful about something that I never would think to be like kind of going through this own list in my head. And it was this checklist of checking in and like kind of honoring that our sexuality, our sexual expression can also reflect how we're feeling about ourselves, whether we're feeling depressed, whether we're feeling ashamed. And excuse me, it was just really powerful that he had this list of things that also honored, so that as this person who's HIV positive, as this person who is in his 60s, that we're just acknowledging like all of these feelings are there, and some of our function or dysfunction might be happening, and to check in with that, and almost valuing that somebody, like just validating to somebody, this is what I want to say, validating to somebody that you have a right to your sexual pleasure, to your sexuality, to your sexual expression. And it's something to be honored, and it's something to also take into account as a part of your own wellness check. And I think that was beautiful.
The more comfortable you feel talking about something that's sexually transmitted, the more comfortable they're going to feel about telling you. And so here it is, some 30 years later, occasionally people will stop me and say, hey, do you remember you met with me, and 15 minutes saved, that 15 minutes meant so much to me, and I don't have, I didn't get HIV. The other thing that in 2020, COVID is with us, the second pandemic. And honestly, when a kiss is deadly, it's a lot more important that people feel comfortable talking about these things. Anyway, I wish you well in your careers, and that's it. Bye.